Have you heard the whispers spreading through Hollywood like wildfire? A storm is gathering around Smokey Robinson, the Motown architect, the velvet-voiced soul giant, the man whose music shaped an entire generation. At 85, he should be celebrating a lifetime of triumphs, but instead, an icy wind is blowing toward him. A former household employee has stepped forward, dropping accusations so disturbing that they sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. And now the question everyone is asking is no longer, did he do it? It's, will his 60-year legacy survive what's coming next? This is no ordinary scandal. This is a battle between fame and truth, between a legend's image and the shadows behind it. You may think you know his story, but don't blink. What lies ahead is only the beginning. Detroit, 1940. A city wrapped in factory smoke, where steel ruled the streets and danger lurked behind every alley. Police sirens were background music. Crime, poverty, and racial tension pressed down like a heavy sky. For most kids born here, dreams didn't survive long. Into this world came a boy named William Robinson, Jr., destined to be known simply as Smokey. He was born in a modest wooden house in Detroit's North End, a neighborhood where survival came before ambition. He carried a rare blend of African American, French, and Native American roots. His father, William Robinson Sr., was quiet and hard-working, grinding through long days in Detroit's factories. His mother, Flossie, was gentle and deeply musical, the first spark of art in the child's life. But fate was merciless. She died when he was only 10. That loss didn't just break his heart, it carved a silence into him that would later fill with songs. With nowhere else to go, he moved in with his grandmother, the woman who would anchor his life. Her home was small, worn, and struggling, but inside it was a treasure chest, an old wooden cabinet filled with more than 2,000 vinyl records, blues, gospel, doo-wop, jazz. It was a universe waiting for a boy with hungry ears. He never had formal lessons, no choir director, no professional coach, just a voice soaked in pain and hope, and a mind that memorized melodies like scripture. At 15, while most boys were still playing on porches, he formed his first group, the Matadors. Every night he wrote songs under flickering lights, dreaming of stages he had never seen. And then destiny arrived. In 1957, at only 17, he and his schoolboy group auditioned for a young songwriter and producer who was quietly plotting a musical revolution, Berry Gordy. The audition room was small and unremarkable, just 4 walls and a dusty piano. But what happened inside, it changed American music forever. After listening in silence, the producer leaned forward and delivered a sentence that would echo across history. "You just showed me the future of music." That moment sealed their fate. The producer became the mentor. The teenager became the trailblazer. By 1958, he officially signed the group, soon renamed the Miracles, and then the training began. The producer taught him how to write addictive hooks, how to build lyrical emotion line by line, how to construct the perfect Motown hit. The student learned so fast that even his mentor admitted he had never seen such raw brilliance. And the results came like thunder. In September 1960, he wrote "Shop Around," the record that transformed Motown from a tiny label into a national powerhouse. The song sold over 1 million copies, hitting number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Between 1961 and 1967, he and his group became the label's miracle machine. "You've really got a hold on me." "Ooh Baby Baby," tracks of my tears. "The Tears of a Clown." These weren't just hits, they were cultural monuments. If Marvin Gaye was Motown Sip's soul, if the Temptations were its style, if Diana Ross was its star, then he was the blueprint that allowed all of them to shine. From 1963 to 1972, he became the label Sep's secret weapon. He gave Marvin Gaye chart toppers like "Ain't Septed That Peculiar" and "I Sit'll Be Doggone." He handed the Temptations their signature ballad, My Girl. He lifted Mary Wells to superstardom with My Guy. His mentor trusted him so deeply that in 1964 he was brought onto the executive board. 2 years later, he was teaching new artists how to walk, talk, breathe, and perform like stars. By 1969, not even 30 years old, he was appointed vice president of Motown Records. Motown, the first black-owned label to dominate America, rose on the foundation of his pen. But fame has a way of turning bright lights into burning fires. Behind the music, the label grew chaotic, deals became complicated, power shifted, rumors spread, and the man at the center of it all was running out of breath. By 1972, after 15 years of performing, writing, and holding Motown's pillars in place, he reached a breaking point. He stepped away from the group that made him famous. He tried to settle into quieter executive life. He tried to be a husband, a father, a man. But music wasn't done with him. In July 1973, he released his first solo album, Smokey. It didn't explode, but it opened a new door, a second chapter that would eventually redefine him yet again. The true turning point, the moment that proved the legend was far from finished, arrived not in the 60s or 70s, but in 1979. That was the year the world witnessed one of the most unexpected comebacks in soul music. A new song appeared on the radio, soft as silk yet unforgettable cruisin'. It didn't just chart, it seduced America. It slid into the Billboard Top 10, sold millions, and became one of the most sensual slow jams ever written. Couples everywhere claimed it as their song. And suddenly, at nearly 40, Smokey Robinson was back, owning the airwaves like he never left. But as applause grew louder, the shadows behind his personal life deepened. The brighter the spotlight, the darker the secrets. Behind Motown's glittering facade, the perfect suits, the choreographed smiles, the polished interviews, was a man living through emotional storms few ever saw. His private life, once considered the epitome of romance and stability, was beginning to crack. Back in 1959, before Motown exploded into a global empire, he had married Claudette Rogers, the only female member of the Miracles. To the outside world, they were the label's royal couple. He wrote the songs. She held the harmonies. Together, they looked like destiny written in musical notes. Fans saw them as proof that love could survive fame. They welcomed 2 children, Barry Robinson, born in 1968 and named after Berry Gordy, and Tamla Robinson in 1969, named after the record label that would become Motown's beating heart. To Motown fans, these children represented the perfect music family legacy, as if their entire home was built on rhythm, devotion, and unshakable unity. But fame has a way of bending truth. As the 70s progressed and Smokey's career soared into the stratosphere, rumors began to swirl. Whispers about affairs, stories about late-night studio sessions that blurred into intimacy. At Motown, where nearly every superstar battled personal chaos, it wasn't surprising. But the idea that he, the soft-spoken gentleman who wrote tear-stained love songs, might be involved in scandal was unthinkable. Until 1904 und 6. That year, the bomb dropped. A revelation emerged, and this time it came from the legend himself. Smokey publicly admitted he had fathered a child with another woman, a boy named Trey, while still living with his wife. Motown had handled countless scandals over the decades, but this one struck differently. This wasn't a wild rock star or a troubled newcomer. This was the man who wrote tracks of my tears, the man whose music defined tenderness. And now he was the one breaking hearts. Claudette filed for divorce after 27 years of marriage. The separation stretched on until 1986, and it was brutal. Smokey later wrote, "It was a tearful divorce that I brought upon myself." The line said everything, guilt, regret, and a sorrow he never tried to hide. But even that wasn't set the bottom. Because while the world debated his scandal, he was walking into a darker war, one far more dangerous than broken vows. The 1980s swallowed him whole. Behind closed doors, he slipped into the grip of cocaine addiction, a battle he described as when darkness becomes your most dangerous friend. He spiraled so deeply that even he wasn't sure he would survive. His health crumbled, his creativity froze, his career dimmed. In his memoir, he confessed, "I came very, very close to dying. Family, friends, and music, the three pillars that once guided him, had to pull him back from the edge. Slowly, painfully, he climbed out of the hole, but the scars remained, becoming a shadow he would carry for decades. Yet even in the darkest pit, something inside him refused to die. And then, when no one expected it, he rose again. After years of silence and turmoil, 1981 brought a resurrection. Smokey released Being With You, a song so heartfelt and melodic that it revived his entire image. It soared to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit number 1 in the UK, selling more than 4 million copies. Suddenly, the world wasn't talking about his mistakes. They were talking about that voice again, warm, smooth, timeless. And he wasn't set finished. In 1987, he delivered another explosion with the album One Heartbeat, featuring the hits Just to See Her and One Heartbeat. Both songs returned him to the charts and cemented him as one of the most enduring voices in R&B. More importantly, Just to See Her earned him his first Grammy, a moment filled with emotion, redemption, and triumph. After decades of shaping American music, the industry finally placed the golden acknowledgement in his hands. From the 90s into the 2000s, he became more than a musician. He became an American cultural monument. He appeared on talk shows, national broadcasts, holiday specials, and even performed for U.S. presidents. When he entered a room, people didn't just see a singer, they saw an era, a legacy, a living embodiment of class and tradition. His contributions weren't merely influential, they were foundational. Over his career, he wrote more than 1,500 officially credited songs. Insiders believe the real number is closer to 3,000, including unreleased demos and forgotten recordings stored away in vaults. He placed over 40 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 as a performer, and more than 70 as a songwriter, crafting hits for artists like Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, and Mary Wells. In Motown history, no pen was mightier than Smokey's. That's why the industry gave him a rare title, the Poet Laureate of Soul. His lyrics weren't just rhymes or catchy hooks, they were diary entries for the human heart. They held vulnerability, longing, and truth. They transformed everyday emotions into poetry, and the world honored him for it. In 1987, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, becoming one of Motown's earliest representatives in the prestigious institution. Later, his name was engraved into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, recognizing the pen that had built a generation's soundtrack. On Hollywood Boulevard, his star joined the constellation of entertainment legends. Then came his greatest national honor in 2002. U.S. President George W. Bush awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest award an American civilian can receive. It was given not just for his voice, but for the cultural fabric he helped weave over half a century. Only a handful of musicians in history have ever received America's highest civilian honor, and Smokey Robinson is one of those rare names. That same year, he quietly entered a new chapter of his personal life, marrying Frances Glennie in a ceremony far calmer and gentler than anything from his Motown days. She wasn't a singer, not a performer, not a public figure chasing cameras. She was a designer with a peaceful heart, the opposite of the music industry's chaos. They never had children together, but she became the anchor of his later years, the person who stood beside him when he clawed his way out of addiction, returned to the stage with renewed fire, and ultimately received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was there for the quieter victories, the ones that came long after the screams of sold-out arenas faded. Then something unexpected happened. Between 2017 and 2024, the world rediscovered Smokey. In his early 80s, he began appearing on award stages and red carpets with glowing skin, unshaken posture, and a youthful face that baffled the internet. Every photo went viral. Every clip sparked new disbelief. Why does Smokey look younger than me at 40? He sets, aging backwards. He sets the sexy uncle of Motown. Suddenly, he wasn't just a legend, he was a meme, a phenomenon, a reminder that charisma never grows old. And then came 2023, the shockwave nobody saw coming. Smokey released Gazeon, an album so sensual that even longtime fans froze in disbelief. At 83, he was writing lyrics bold enough to rival artists one-third his age. The artwork, the song titles, the tone, everything screamed one message. Legends don't retire. Legends evolve. He proved he could still surprise the world, still create, still break boundaries, still keep people talking. Which is why when the storm hit at 85, the shock was even greater. It started in May 2025. 4 former household employees filed a lawsuit in the Los Angeles Superior Court. It wasn't a tabloid rumor. It wasn't anonymous gossip. It was an official complaint, detailed, lengthy, and demanding $50 million in damages. They accused the workplace inside Smokey's own home of being chaotic, unprofessional, emotionally damaging. They claimed they were yelled at, insulted, underpaid, and denied basic labor protections like minimum wage and overtime. At first, the case looked like a standard labor dispute, the kind celebrities often settle quickly. Smokey's attorney, Christopher Frost, dismissed everything as opportunistic fiction, a coordinated attempt to exploit fame for a payday. Fans assumed the situation would fade away. But it didn't sit, because in November 2025, the case changed, violently. 2 plaintiffs filed a shocking amendment to the lawsuit. Jane Doe 5, a longtime housekeeper. John Doe 1, an auto detailer who worked at the Chatsworth residence. Both claimed they were placed in uncomfortable situations that blurred the line between professional and personal boundaries. Jane Doe 5, who worked from 2005 to 2011, stated that she was regularly called to the second-floor bathroom to scrub his back. She said she was asked into private areas of the home for tasks she felt were far outside her role. The emotional toll, she claimed, led to long-term panic, anxiety, and even a 2015 breast reduction surgery to avoid attention. She didn't stop there. Jane accused Frances, the wife, of creating a hostile work environment, of yelling at employees, blaming them when accidents happened, and ignoring complaints regarding her husband's behavior. She also reiterated earlier claims of unpaid wages and overtime. Then came John Doe 1. Hired in 2013 to maintain vehicles and the yard, he described moments where he felt uneasy, unsure how to respond, and said he was invited into interior rooms under circumstances that didn't feel appropriate for a workplace. His contract ended, but a year later he was invited back, and according to him, the behavior continued. After hearing other employees tell similar stories, he walked away and joined the lawsuit. Unlike Jane, he didn't pursue wage issues. He focused solely on emotional distress. The revelation that shocked the public most was simple but devastating. Frances Glennie was named directly as a defendant. This was no longer Smokey alone facing a lawsuit. This was the Robinson household, the Robinson family, the Robinson legacy. Smokey's attorney immediately denied everything, calling the claims fabricated, malicious, and anonymous attacks on an American icon. He stated both Smokey and Frances would fight relentlessly in court. The next hearing is set for January 6. The full trial is scheduled for October 2027, which means this battle will shadow him for years. The question haunting fans and journalists is no longer simply about legal guilt or innocence, it's about legacy. Will 60 years of music, 3,000 songs, countless memories, timeless classics survive this storm? Because the scariest part of the case isn't the lawsuit itself. It sets the public reaction. The moment the amended complaint went public, the internet fractured. Smokey would never do this. He sets the heartbeat of Motown. He gave us Zig Cruisin', Zisted, why would anyone try to destroy him now? These voices see him as a musical father figure, a pillar of gentleness, artistry, and soul. To them, the case is a cash grab disguised as trauma. They neither defend nor accuse. Instead, they ask, is Motown's shadow finally leaking into the light? Motown was glamorous, revolutionary, and culturally transformative, but it also carried secrets, power struggles, pressure cooker environments, intense control, stories left untold in the 60s and 70s because the world wasn't ready to hear them. And now, with an 85-year-old icon under fire, some people wonder if the cracks are finally showing. American media wasted no time placing his name alongside other fallen icons: Bill Cosby, P. Diddy, R. Kelly. Not because their cases are the same, they're not. Not because he is guilty, he is not convicted of anything, but because the media cares more about sensation than truth. A single amended complaint was enough to drag a legendary name into the same conversation as men whose reputations collapsed publicly. And that's what makes this moment so terrifying for his legacy. The more accusations emerge, the more his entire legacy is dragged under a burning spotlight, and slowly the world stops asking, did he do it? The question mutates into something far more haunting: can the Motown empire survive this? Because this isn't just a legal storm, it's a cultural earthquake. And to understand the full weight of that earthquake, we have to step into a chapter that almost no one ever talks about. A chapter that reveals not the legend on stage, but the human being who walked through fire long before his name faced controversy. This is the part of his story that explains everything: the pain, the heart, the fragility behind the voice the world called divine. For decades, he was known for that sugar-smooth voice, gentle, silky, wrapped in emotion so pure that the entire Motown family once whispered that he sounded like an angel. His voice wasn't just beautiful, it felt untouchable. But few people know that there was a moment when that voice nearly disappeared forever. Years of non-stop touring, sleepless nights, and relentless performances had worn him down. There came a point when he couldn't finish a single vocal line without pain searing through his throat. His vocal cords were so inflamed that his once velvet tone turned rough, raspy, almost unrecognizable. He would sit alone in the studio, listening to old recordings and whispering to himself, "Is that really me?" Walking onto a stage made his lungs tighten. Even breathing felt like a battle. The breaking point came in the late 1990s. He collapsed breathless in the studio. Doctors warned him plainly, if he didn't stop, if he didn't change everything, the voice the world adored could be lost permanently. And for the first time in his life, he confronted a fear greater than aging, scandal, or fading fame, the fear of losing the gift that had lifted him out of Detroit poverty and carved his name into American music. From that moment, his discipline became almost warrior-like. Meditation at dawn, breathing exercises every day. A strict diet that rivaled professional athletes. It was survival. It was devotion. It was the only way he knew to protect what he believed was his divine calling. He once said something that chills the heart even now. "My voice is a gift from God. I must protect it at all costs." But there was another secret, one the world rarely hears about. Before the comeback, before the headlines, before the gossip, he once considered leaving music forever and becoming a minister. After his divorce, after addiction, after sleepless nights and broken years, he thought maybe music was no longer his path. He turned inward, searching for peace, for silence, for a way to heal a soul battered by fame. He spent months quietly attending Bible classes, sitting in church pews, listening to sermons that soothed him in ways applause never could. He meditated, practiced yoga, studied spirituality. The idea of becoming a minister wasn't a fantasy, it was a serious possibility. He said, "I wanted peace. I wanted purpose. I wanted to help people heal." But the irony of his life is this: music refused to let him go. His voice, fragile, wounded, nearly stolen, became the last thread keeping him from falling into the abyss, and once he realized that, he stepped back onto the stage with a deeper, quieter wisdom. Yet there is another side of him the world rarely acknowledges, the man in the community, not the man under the spotlight. Detroit raised him. Detroit shaped him. And he spent the rest of his life trying to repay that debt. Long before awards and presidential medals, he was inside the neighborhoods doing work that no reporter ever bothered to cover. He funded Detroit schools, rebuilt music rooms, purchased instruments for children who had never touched one, and created programs to help Black youth escape poverty. Many of the kids he helped decades ago grew into musicians, teachers, engineers, even soldiers. Every one of them speaks his name with the same emotion: gratitude. He didn't sit, just write checks. He showed up. He stayed late. He carried boxes, set up tables, swept floors if needed. A volunteer once said, "He arrived before everyone else, helped set up like an ordinary worker, and left after everyone went home." You said never believe he was a world-famous superstar. That devotion didn't go unnoticed. In 2002, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from George W. Bush, not just for the songs he wrote, but for the lives he transformed quietly, humbly, without cameras. He once admitted that helping children made him feel like he was reaching back to save the poor, frightened version of himself from long ago. He understood pain. He understood struggle. He knew firsthand that sometimes all it took was one opportunity, one open door, and a life could be rewritten. And now, as the 2024-2025 wave of accusations crashes down, the world is confronted with a contradiction. How can one man be so loved and so scrutinized at the same time? He is the poor kid from Detroit, the closest friend of Berry Gordy, the pen behind Motown SEP's most emotional hits, the voice that carried a generation, the man who once lost everything and clawed his way back. A Medal of Freedom recipient, a flawed human, a legend with scars stitched deep beneath the melodies. And now he stands at the edge of his greatest test, not in a courtroom, but in history SEP's judgment. The question hanging over everything is frightening in its simplicity. Is the legacy strong enough to survive? Truth may take years to surface. His reputation may sway like a ship in a storm. Even the legacy of Motown itself, glamorous, golden, but never spotless, may fracture under the weight. But one truth cannot be erased. He remains one of the last living architects of modern soul music. The light and the darkness both belong to his story, and his story deserves to be told without erasing the humanity behind the icon. So now the question returns to you: is he being misunderstood? Or is Motown SEP's past finally cracking open? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because the next chapter will dive even deeper into the untold truths of celebrity lives, the triumphs, the secrets, the shadows they hoped would never surface. All analysis in this video is based on information available at the time of production and may evolve as new details emerge. There is still so much more to uncover, so keep watching.